All right, once again, I'm just going to do a straight off the cuff. Um, I've actually taken a day to really kind of gather my focus and own in on a lot of things. And, one of the biggest problems that we have right now is that this is not a us versus them, red versus blue, or whatever. And it will continue, and it might be varied. The thing that's different in this situation is the exponentially large movement against the fabric of society, if you want to even, go that bold. But in basic terms, it's a tale as old as time. It's good versus evil. And the thing that's happened is that the lines have become so blurred, and it's all started as incrementally allowing things to alter our perceptions and our moralities. Let me preface by what I say, that my morality is mine. I don't expect anybody else to uphold my morality or see exactly how I see it, because each individual is unique. I believe each individual has the right to express themselves in any way they seem fit, as long as it doesn't harm or demean somebody. I believe that people are free to do as they please, as long as it follows the laws. If you want to have 5 wives and everybody is of a consensual nature, I have no problem with that. I don't think I would ever follow that suit, but I'm not here to judge on something that is consensual and doesn't directly affect me. Okay? Now, let me talk about like racism and things like that, because, like I said, that doesn't directly affect me. It does it in a lot of ways, and it has in the past, because anybody can hate anybody, and I'm not exactly white. Okay? So it has affected me. But to say that, anytime you come from a derogatory, negative, hateful origin of where you're applying your stance, is in my opinion, it's wrong. Just as, if you have 5 wives and it's all consensual, that's great. But at the same time, if you reverse that and say that it's not consensual and you're talking about rape, that's different. Okay? I mean, this is not really rocket science, but a lot of people have a lot of problems with exactly what morality is, because the morality is on a sliding scale and it's never set. It follows from one week to the next. I'm lonely this week. I'm going to do what I want to do. Okay? And in today's society, the YOLO, you only live once, the let's get drunk and inhibit our judgment and blame it on that and just do what we want type of generation that we've, come into, which is part of the problem. And for me, being fairly solidified in my morality, my perception doesn't really change on things. Whenever I'm going to talk a little bit about the riots or the protest and all of this other stuff, because we've gotten into a place where, as a society, we can't speak to one another. We talk to one another. We argue points. We have to be heard, and our points have to be accepted. There's some things that just can't be accepted, and some people cannot see it. When the George Floyd video came out, and he was point blank murdered, whether it was intentional or not, he was murdered. A man took a man's life. It was wrong. I was disgusted when I saw it. I was hurt. It didn't matter the color of skin. It didn't matter the circumstances whatsoever. That was unacceptable. It went against everything that I uphold. There was different ways to do it. You know, the time was too long, and it was wrong. And I think as a nation, everyone kind of felt in unison about that. They were going to protest. I support that because I, like most people, saw it as something wrong and needed to be dealt with. It wasn't that racism needed to be, brought down. The level of it had reached so high that police are just racist Nazis walking the streets and they're evil. And how can racism? It wasn't that. It was how can a man take another man's life on the side of a city street? You have the protest, and unfortunately, by a little pushing from people that are very organized in their destructive, uh, desocializing ways, we're able to interject a play, a move. And I'm going to go into more detail about the chessboard on this, but the protest turned into beatings, fires, theft, destruction. Now here's the part where there's a rift right down the middle in a lot of people that don't have a solid, I wouldn't do that type of mentality. You cannot say that any of that destructive behavior is acceptable. It should not be punished. It should be looked upon as a, an exact result of pent upness. It's a result of the equation of Floyd dying. That doesn't work. You can't punch somebody in the face and then stab them and say, well, yeah, I was upset. And when I punched him, it just led to that. No, because it's still wrong. It got turned into something that it never was. A race issue. The body cam shows that it wasn't a race issue. Floyd, who appeared to be intoxicated to the store owner and passed a counterfeit $20 bill, he got the police called on him. For those, the police did ask what color he was, and it was mainly to attribute if they saw him on the street, who were they looking for? It wasn't this black dude came in. That wasn't a preface. At no time did I hear anything racist presented. And you said, well, it's all inadvertent. No, it's not. It isn't. It isn't. You're looking for something that's not there. And that's the biggest problem with what's going on with society. And that's why it's so discouraging to people like me that have an intelligent, analytical way of looking at things and trying to talk to people on a certain level. And one of the things that is crazy is that you have this group of people who are protesting who are led mainly by white women. In most circumstances, look at it. And BLM is a female-ran organization. And, you just have to really do some research. You can't look at what you see on the news or what's on your Facebook or just, absorb secondhand. You have to look into things, investigate it. Anytime that you're just led by with what somebody says and you don't fact check it, that's why Facebook came out with the fact checking. They don't really do it too much on the other side of things. And I'll say that I am mostly conservative. And because that's what, you don't want to be outrageous. I did that when I was in my young years. And it really wasn't, it didn't bear any fruit. It really didn't. But when you learn how to talk and communicate with somebody and learn how to listen and communicate with somebody, you can have a meaningful exchange and possibly learn something. And you ain't never going to learn anything if you know everything. Tell that to my kids. But with so many things and so many outlets for this information and source data on this particular thing, because you have each individual side and each individual subcategory looking for information, and there's a thirst for it. Okay, it's kind of like, how do you up your Christmas sales? You make something limited, or you build a lot of hype around it. Well, there's a lot of this, but mainly the hype is just a whole bunch of people trying to conceal what's really going on. And we'll talk about good versus evil and how systematically it's interjected. If you look at the media, you look at the owners of the media, most major news outlets, except for one, is owned by one company. What does that tell you? If I own a company and I want a certain thing done a certain way, and I want certain information done a certain way, I'm going to have that done. Or I'm going to interject, certain consequences until I can find employees that do what I want or how I want it. Let's take a look at racism. Because whenever I talk to people, it's I understand that racism exists, and it always will. Hate will always exist. Jealousy, pride will always exist. It will. Socialism will not bring a utopian where everything is equal, and nobody will always be equal. We are too unique as individuals for everything to be harmonious and things to be copacetic. We deal with it. We communicate. That's how we overcome these situations. Hey, I wouldn't really like that you cut in line. I don't think that's right. I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. But I just want you to know that if I see you and you ask me for a favor, or I don't hold you as, a considerate person. It's that simple. Not punch somebody. This bitch cut me off. No, you're falling. You're falling into a trap. But when I'm talking with somebody and we talk about racism, or it exists, yeah, it does. But the mentality of some people is that this is a huge exponential problem that's killing America. Cops need to be defunded. Cops are bad. All cops are bad. All cops must die. Really? Really? So you're saying, if you're taking a whole large category of people, you might as well just say all the people. People in general, we fail. We fail in so many different types of categories. I fail. So are all humans bad? We make mistakes? No. I would venture to say even that would say, well, police are brutal. They have too much power. I would adhere more to that than I would say racism. And I have seen racist cops. I have. It exists. There's no denying it. But to say that it occupies the majority of the forces is just ignorance. I would say that a cop's main line of thinking is to stay alive. Secondary is providing for his family or himself, making an income and making it in life. And everything else after that is subsidiary. I don't think that you have cops walking the streets trying to enforce some supremacist attitude. I think people higher up might be able to utilize that perception, but you're not going to be able to convince me that racism is a huge exponential burden in America. There are too many people that I know that are black, Asian, whatever, that I converse with, and it's never brought up. I mean, there are certain aspects of it. You point at something, that dude right there, he's racist. But it's not something it's that simple. Out of the hundreds of people that me and my friends interact with, is that dude ain't right. And it's something that I'm close enough with my friends that it would be brought up. I've never had anybody come up to me, and trust me, I know lots of information. I have deep conversations with a lot of people, and I've never heard an outcrying, man, these people, there's so many people that are out to get me, man. I'm just really afraid. I just wish I was white, or I wish I wasn't my race, or there's just not like that. I mean, we do hear outcries here from time to time within society, and we do see racism. But again, and we'll go even hypothetically. Does one racist cop with his knee in the back of an adult male murdering him, does that warrant all this destruction and rioting, statue destruction, and all of this? Or does it warrant a sit down with an intellectual conversation and saying, this is not acceptable, laws have to be changed, more stringent process in hiring has to be adhered to? That's the answer to it all. And all this sidetracking and distraction of riots and virus and little debates about whether you wear a mask and all of these nonsensical, whimsical, they're all distractions. And as I see Trump and Biden, or anti-Trump and Trump, there's just so much bickering and arguing going on, and nobody is willing to listen. You have to learn some facts. And if you want, I mean, I can accept a lot of things. I can accept that. Look, let me also say this. I'm non-political. I never have been. When I was in, here you go, here's a little biography for you. When I was in 4th grade, I had a unique opportunity to have a neighbor who was drafted into the Vietnam War. I didn't know how crazy this motherfucker was, but he was a little bit off of his rocker, especially to anybody who was an adult. To me, when he talked to me, he was very cool. He was very cool, and he spoke it like it was. I was in 4th grade, dude. I didn't have a whole vast. I was, and this was back in the day, so we didn't have internet and all that stuff. I had the real deal on the ground talking to me, explaining shit to me that probably most 32-year-olds would have dismissed him. I wasn't 32-year-olds, like I was saying, that most adult people around me warned me to stay away from that dude. He was a little off of his fucking rocker. Little shell shock or something in the war. But me being a clean slate and non-judgmental, he was cool to me. He was very cool, and he told me these stories. When I was a little boy, I liked G.I. Joe, and he would tell me these war stories and stuff like that. And he was a cool dude. But he was dismissed by older people as a loony. He was smart as hell. And if somebody would have just sat down and listened to him, I would have got a lot of knowledge out of that guy. He told me about the draft. He explained stuff to me as if I was 32 years old. He told me about the government, what was going on, and I didn't know anything about it. But it instilled into me as a distrust and always questioning what the government's doing and why society is doing what it's doing. That's how he would talk to me. A fourth grader, dude. He talked to me about society and war and motivations and governments. And Kennedy got brought, I mean, a broad spectrum. And that's probably what really instilled the seed of the conspiracist theory person within me. Because I had a perspective firsthand from somebody that was a Nam that most people didn't have. And I had the ability to listen. And I didn't dismiss it because I would ask certain questions, or I would go to the library and look stuff up. And I would, as I learned, especially with the JFK thing, is really what kind of hooked me in, because he would tell me about all this JFK stuff. And then I would ask, like, my mom, JFK and stuff like this. And it was like, well, we don't in this. And I heard the backstory. And I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. He was making a lot of sense. And once you hear somebody and can contemplate that makes some sense, then you can individually decide to investigate it or look into it and see what you come up with. Is there any fruit to it? And that's probably what's really been taxating me a lot lately, is because there's an abundance of distractions and keywords thrown up like Antifa and this. There's a lot of investigating going on right now. And it's really a difficult thing. And trauma exists, and mental breakdowns exist, and people like to think that they're really above all of it, and they've got a grasp on it. But eventually you just give out. I was just like running on little sleep and working like a normal person would, and in a physically demanding job, and I should have just said no, I'm not going to do it. But it's one of those things that when you're in the moment, it's like gambling. You're sitting there, you put money in, and all of a sudden $50 is gone out of your 70, and it's like, I'm going to put this last in and I'm going to make it back. Well, you're too caught up to realizing whatever, just walk away, man. But that's what a lot of people need to do, because they've become to the point where it's unable to have a civilized conversation with people. I mean, even within the same conservatives, you can't disagree with exactly with what they believe in, because why? Well, I don't know how many conversations that I've had, because I don't vote, non-political, and but if I were a voting man, I would vote for Trump, just because of what all the evidence and everything leads in my view. Okay, look at the career politicians, what's taken place, and if you look at the Democratic Party's origins and what they've accomplished, I'm just saying that's what I would base it on. And I might be wrong, and you might not share that opinion with me, and I'm okay with that. You can have another opinion, but don't condemn me because I like Frito chili pie, but you don't. That's stupid, isn't it? People say that Trump is racist, and I ask for examples. There's really not a solid example. You're sitting here trying to say that, well, Trump, he's a womanizer, and then look, everybody that's held that office is a human being, and they all fail, and they're never going to live up to a standard of perfection. So get your ass over it. Because I can tell you right now that Obama was a cokehead in college. Everybody knows that. He said it in his book. What do you want to do? What do you want to say? Anything could be used against people. Do I think Trump is the greatest person in the world? He's loud, he's egotistical, he's boisterous, he's a male chauvinist. Sometimes he needs a filter. There's reasons I don't like him. But given a choice of this or that, do you think Biden is a male chauvinist? You think he hadn't done coke? You don't think he's been pulling strings behind the political power that he obtained? Are you kidding me? Are you saying that everybody on the Democratic side is angels? Are you kidding me? So before you condemn somebody because they don't exactly live up to what your ideals are. Just understand that's what the world is. It's a whole bunch of different, unique people. And, that's what the voting process is supposed to embody. A majority of people who select. And when you vote, there's a winner and there's a loser. And a lot of times the losers are just bad at sports. And a lot of times in the Democratic Party, there's so much invested in them losing, such as their power, paychecks, that they're willing to do and say just about anything. It's really, if you really want to understand how this evil works its way around, do masks save lives? How many debates have we had about masks? How much research has been done into it? How many times has it changed? How much lockdown, not lockdown? I mean, we have had some back and forth. It is all a system to keep you in a chaotic trance and not looking at the real stuff. If you want to be a Muslim, I think you should be, as long as you don't hurt anybody and follow the laws and follow the golden rule. That's the biggest thing in the world, is the golden rule. Got a lot of people doing shit to people that they would not want done to themselves. Lots. I try to be courteous. I try to be apathetic and empathetic at the same time. I try to be understanding. But the amount of ignorance that's out in this world, like if you're talking and you bring up a point, like, let's say Trump's racist. Well, give me an example. I don't need to, man. He's just racist. You know how frustrating that is for somebody that would actually either, number one, like to have some really good examples so I can actually dissect it and possibly you might sway my opinion. Or number two, prove your case or don't prove it. Maybe you might be wrong, but nobody is willing to admit that they're wrong anymore. Nobody's willing to admit that racism is not quite exactly what it seems. I mean, if you take the guy that was, shot at that Wendy's, that's not racism. I mean, I personally, if I get pulled over and I've been drinking and I've been arrested for it before, I'm going to have my spider sense up. And the last thing that I'm going to do, now mind you, he was intoxicated, so his judgment wasn't quite all there. But the last thing I'm going to do is oppose guys with guns, try to run away and grab a taser while I'm doing it. I'm not going to wrestle no cops. I'm going to be responsible, and I'm going to have what a lot of people are afraid to take these days, which is accountability. Take accountability for your own actions and not try to pass the buck. Oh, well, you see what happened there? Yeah, I did see what happened. The dude failed a sobriety test and was going to jail. He didn't want that. He wrestled the cops, he took a taser, and he ran. Now, I have friends that are in law enforcement. That's how I know that not all of them are racist and not all of them are evil. Some of them are just family guys that just, man, I had a rough day. I barely made it home alive. I'm just glad I got to see my kids. It's that simple. But I've said, I jumped on that wagon where it's like, dude, that's bullshit. Why couldn't they just shoot him in the leg? That's all they had to fucking do in this tension-filled atmosphere that America's in right now. Why didn't they just shoot the guy in the leg? Huh? Why couldn't they just let him go? Why couldn't they just let him go and picked him up? They had his car. I was just like, no. We're gonna hear it. We're gonna hear how this is a racist thing. It's not that racist. But I felt a sinking in my heart because I knew that's what the interpretation and the projection was going to be. And I just got mad. And I was just like, why couldn't you just shoot him in the leg? Why? And that's when my friend pulled me to the side and said, Police are trained to diffuse a situation and to end potential threats. They're not trained to clip people. Their job is, and they're trained. And if you think about it, what if he would have been white and he would have been somebody who was a serial killer? Do you want the guy shot in the leg where he may or may not be able to hobble off? Or you want him put down? What if he was a rapist, child rapist, or just a rapist in general? And animals too. Just a low life. Hey, would you want him trying to shoot at a slender ankle and maybe missing, and the guy gets away and does what he does to continually? Or would you want him put down? That's the way the cops are trained. And when you put that in your mentality, that should tell you, hey, when this cop is talking to me, I should probably listen. And then roll my dice. Maybe this one's not racist, because most of them are not racist. Then the other thing that we had discussed, I was just, I said, well, it just would have been better off. And, the other thing that is prevalent is that this guy took a taser. He was intoxicated. He was not reasoning. He would not just go get in the cop car and go sit in a jail cell. He wouldn't do that. That's irrationality. So if a cop knows that he's acting irrational, number one, he's become physically aggressive towards cops. He's taken a taser and he's running off into a night of protesters and rioting and all of that. What is the probability that something eventually that he could injure somebody else, or it could go worse? They had to, in mere seconds, make a decision, and that's what they're trying to do, is just end the situation. And after, my friend had told me, that from that perspective firsthand of what an officer, I have to say, when a cop comes up to you, don't get ballsy, find out, just be compliant, Cops want to go home too, man. Cops don't want to deal with this bullshit. Cops don't want to be fired. And that's the other thing. If you defund the police, if you are for defunding the police, that means your whole economic system is trash. Because you don't have courts. You don't have jail cells. You don't have all the jobs that are occupying those positions, like judges, bailiffs, prison guards, police officers. Judicial system collapses. That's one of the third branches of the government. And a lot of people would love to see that happen when have a socialist regime come through. But you don't want that, trust me. That'll be another video. But what we have now is a systemic chess game going on with a lot of distractions, bells and whistles. And with that, I should make a whole bunch of little bitty dissectional videos to support what I'm saying. But if you cannot see that the moral sense, and that's what in BLM's alma mater, like their statements to destroy a normal family. They accept transgenderism, homosexuality, and like I say, if that's what you feel, and that's what you choose, and you're going to be upfront and honest about it, and not hurt other people, I support that. I don't necessarily support it, but I accept it. I don't understand it. I can't agree with it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was born with a penis and I was raised as a boy, and I know I'm a boy. I've never had those thoughts, so it's something that I don't understand. I'm attracted to women, so I don't understand. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. There have been points and times where it's like I've dealt with some crazy women consistently, back to back, and I thought to myself, I should be gay because it ain't worth it. That is in a jokingly manner. There's about the closest I've come to understanding homosexuality. Just being fed up with the opposite gender. That's about the only thing that has gotten me in the realm of understanding or grasping that, because I just don't feel that way. That's not, I don't get it. So, um, in digression, we have a whole lot of things that have been implemented within our society as being acceptable, and it's very uh, flamboyant. Now, some people wear a cross on their neck. I don't think that's too flamboyant. I mean, if you wore a gay pride shirt, whatever, I don't think that's being flamboyant. I think that's expressing who you are. But whenever you are embodying and saying to people, and you get on a soapbox, and it's not within your arena, you are intruding. Just as it would be intruding if a whole bunch of Christians went to a gay bar, stepped up in there, and started trying to convert people. A lot of people, there are Christians that do that, and I don't agree with that. I think that you need to have one-on-one in conversations, or let people come to where you're at when they're ready. That way it can be a meaningful dialect, and the other person is on the precipice of understanding or making a transition in transitional shift in mental, heart, and spirit. And that's the way that it should be. I don't think there should be angry villagers with Bibles running around trying to convert all these sinners. Even though I was kind of raised as a Baptist, it's not, I don't I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you have to live by example. And I think there's a lot of bad Christian examples out there. A lot of them say one thing, but they go home and they beat their wives and they drink beers till they pass out. It's not right. But you have hypocrisy everywhere. People need to realize that just because if I say I'm a Christian, that I'm perfect. Don't adhere me to a certain level. I try very hard not to be a hypocrite and do the best that I can, but I'm not perfect. And to somehow think that to tell me that that's what I'm coming off as, or as I try to be, could be farther from the truth. I know I'm imperfect, but I try to recognize it. And if you want to talk to me about my imperfections, or if I make a mistake, I try to be understanding and listen, because that's how I grow. That's how most people grow. It's being told, hey, you're doing this wrong. Let me show you a different way. I mean, how do you learn skills? You try it, you mess up, somebody comes along and tries, maybe gives you some, hey, try doing it this way. Maybe that'll help. Oh, let me try that. Oh, that's a good help. Or maybe it doesn't, and you kind of dismiss it and you keep trying until you hone your craft. But what has happened is that we have interjected a whole bunch of, and I embrace it, multicultural things. I draw stuff from a lot of different cultures, Buddhism, shamanism, and stuff like that. But at the base core of everything is biblical Christianity. Because I try to take positive, if anything, that I can. But there's people out here that take evil and they take the bad and they embrace it because of hurt in their heart, hypocrisy, or whatever it is, whatever decision leads them. And I've been at points like that in my life where I just didn't care about myself, and I didn't care about life, and I didn't care about anybody else. And it was easy. Yeah, screw it, fine. I'll go steal that shit. It ain't gonna fucking matter. It's different now. You go through life and you grow. Most people do anyway. Some people don't. Some people still try to manipulate and control, and there are people way up that see what needs to be, what they deem is what needs to be taken what action needs to be taken to get their end course completed. And there's some evil people, and their ranks are growing, because being evil and not giving a shit is just easy. Not giving a shit and being destructive is a lot easier than constructing and building and nurturing. It's harder. It's harder to get up every morning. It's harder to do, the house cleaning and take care of all the responsibilities, because it's a lot to uphold. And a lot of people can't have it. That's why people have nervous breakdowns. Because they're trying to live to an expectation that they just can't. And I can't work, be a dad, and follow these conspiracies like I do. Some things are more important than the others. And I already know how this ends, because it's going to end just like it has last year and the year before that. Evil is going to increase, because we have people that will not conversate and talk. And it's going to go downhill, because evil is trying to rule. These are things that are hypocritical, that make no sense to me. How are you going to tell me that it's okay for a Muslim to practice his religion, a Buddhist to practice his religion, every other religion except for Christianity? How are you going to tell me that Christianity is a lie because it's not a white, blue-eyed Jesus? Okay? That it's only a manipulation to control people, when I know millions of people have had their heart enlightened by just the words within that Bible, and learn how to love and think about things like that. Okay? Why is there so much hate against one religion? Why is it banned in schools? These are questions that you need to answer yourself. Why is this the enemy? Is it because somebody told you that they're trying to, they don't like homosexuals? Well, some don't. And there's some people that aren't Christians that hate and kill homosexuals. What do you think Muslim people feel about homosexuality? Do a Google search at homosexuality in the Middle East. See what happens. It says in the Bible that to lay with your own gender is an abomination. But it also says to have a forgiving heart. So that's where I draw my own personal perspective on homosexuality. As long as you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting somebody else, you're not being a liar about it, and just your choice, and you don't try to subjugate me, like what's going on in society widely, to accept it and agree that it is great, we're not going to have a problem. And I can talk to you. I don't have a problem. If that is your choice and your partner's choice, and you guys are happy, and you're not hurting anybody, I'm not going to agree with it because I don't understand it. It's just like if I took you to a multi-ranged physics class of algebra and just equations that you looked at it and it was just like numbers and symbols to you. And I asked you, what's the answer to that? You'd be a fool to answer it, because you don't understand it. You can't comprehend it. So I'm not going to really get on a soapbox and try to go any further than saying, I don't get it, I don't understand it. I know that this says that it's bad, but you guys, and a lot of people don't understand. And this goes for Christianity, anything. If you want to be an example for your cause, don't have a protest and let it turn into a riot, because you've let destruction and a negative moniker follow it. If you're homosexual, be a homosexual couple and be productive and say, look, we can maintain dignity and morality. We just don't believe that part of the Bible adheres to us. Then you draw things that are more of a talking point. It's harder to get that way because very few people are able to do it. Most people think that of the average Joe, but I'm going to tell you that mostly of the average Joe, we are spiritual people. I don't, I know the Bible backwards and forwards, and I don't ever present myself as a Christian. What I say is I draw upon the Bible. Okay? And that's what I do, is I try to take all the good points and the positive points, and that help me mentally and physically and spiritually. And they're beneficial. Because it's not beneficial to destroy a society, to be uptight, to be worrisome, or to be in fear. Those are things that the enemy does. This went on for too long, this part, whatever. But there's a lot of knowledge that I just gave you. And we need to learn how to talk to one another. We need to learn how to disagree with one another. To something, there are certain things that I won't, like I said, it has to be within the parameters of the law. And it has to be subjugated to severity. You're not going to talk to me and tell me how an 80-year-old dude raped a 3-year-old child and that it's okay. We're going to have a problem with that, and I'm just not going to talk to you because that's an unacceptable talking point to me. But the thing is that is a severity, and it's also against the law. I mean, if you think that a 3-year-old child has the ability to consent and is copacetic with that, I don't think you're right. And we can talk about that point because we're talking about a hypothetical situation. I'm more than willing to discuss that. But we're having problems with people in America talking about basic things like racism, basic things like President Trump, basic things like masks. These are things that aren't against the law. These are things that really should not be that controversial to where we can openly talk about it. The problem is that a lot of people that I've spoken with, they get shot down pretty quick because I'm a pretty analytical thinker and I'm quick on my wit. And nobody likes to, they feel like they're losing the battle or anything, and they don't look at it as an opportunity to say, well, maybe I've been wrong. And like I said, I'm not motivated by Trump. I'm not motivated politically at all. I am, however, motivated for morality and goodness and love and understanding. And that should be what everybody tries to obtain. Anyway, let's just talk to people, man. I love everybody the best we can. And if somebody suggests something to you or talks to you, it might not be because they hate you. It might be because they love you. Or they see that you're headed someplace that might be dangerous. Or they could be full of shit. You never know. Until you actually have a conversation and release that portion of your mind that says, let me think about this from a different perspective. Be good to one another.